guys, LunarSpawn27 here, and welcome to my review of the second season of Stardust Crusaders and the final impressions on Part 3 as a whole. But I'm not here to do this alone. Today, here with me is a special guest who's even more of a Jojo expert than I am.
I wonder what she's talking about.
It's you,
Oh,
dumbass.
me? Oh, in that case, I'm the anime hero. I review anime so you can enjoy it.
Yes, I have the anime here with me today to help me review the second season of Stardust Crusaders, but we're going to go on this in a more organized way. So first off, we're going to talk about the story of Stardust Crusaders, and in case you guys don't know about Stardust Crusaders, I mean, I hope you guys do, because seriously, this is like the second season we're reviewing. Stardust Crusaders is part 3 of JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, where we're introduced to a new power called Stance. In this one, our main protagonist is Jotaro Kujo, the grandson of Joseph Joestar, the second JoJo, who happens to be the grandson of Jonathan Joestar, who was the first JoJo in Part 1. In this story, Dio Brando, who was the first main antagonist in Phantom Blood, has returned after 100 years possessing Jonathan's body. Because of this, it triggered the awakening of the Joestar bloodline's Stance. In the first season, not only are we introduced to the concept of Stance, but Jotaro encounters many other Stan users. Him, Joseph, and his new allies Mohammed Avdol, Noriaki Kakyoin, and Jean-Pierre Polnareff join together to travel to Egypt to kill Dio in order to save Jotaro's mother, Holly Kujo, who has awakened her stand, but her stand is killing her. Now, in the second season of Stardust Crusaders, our heroes have arrived in Egypt, but they have to encounter even more obstacles in the form of the 9 Egyptian god stand users, and they have a new ally in their group, the 6th stand user, Iggy the dog with his stand, the Fool. There, that is the story of Stardust Crusaders. So, why don't we just talk about the structure of the story? Hero, why don't you say your thoughts about it?
Well, everyone knows that Stardust Crusaders is either... How can I put this? Some people describe Stardust Crusaders either like the most interesting part of JoJo or sometimes even the worst part of JoJo. Simply because of its easy to follow structure of, let's just fight one bad guy to the next. While Crusaders is known for doing this, it is actually the first for other JoJo parts to start, following the same trend. The problem with Crusaders is that it's almost, it's very noticeable.
I see. Yeah, for me with the story, it kind of follows a monster of a week formula because like every episode, Jotaro and the others would encounter an evil stand user. Sometimes they would usually last for around 1 to 2 episodes. In some cases, half an episode or even like a couple minutes.
Oh god, because I know you're referring to the fodder characters and the ones that lasted seconds, because that's kind of the problem I have with Araki as a whole, because ever since Part 3 kicks in, he starts changing his writing style altogether in comparison to like how Part 1 and 2 was, where it was more masculine and the villains were more honorable. Basically, all the villains that we had, they were intimidating thugs, even minor characters like Santana and Jack the Ripper. But in Part 3, it's an overabundance of villains, actually. A lot of the minor thugs first show up acting like they're all big shit, but then by the end of the fight, they're like, no, please don't hurt me. I'm sorry. Leave me alone. You're hurting my feelings.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
know what you mean.
But the thing is, Part 3 has a lot of strengths and weaknesses. I feel that Crusaders has a lot more pros than it does cons.
Well, yeah, I mean, like with the previous season, we had 14 tarot card stand users, and only one of them actually managed to return, and it was Whole Horse. And when you said like some stand users would usually like end up being pathetic at the end, yeah, that is true. I actually did notice some of that in with, for example, Rubber Soul with Yellow Temperance and Forever and Strength. And I guess you could say the same thing would apply to the 9 Egyptian god stand users, but I feel like that most of them were more loyal to Dio. In fact, I liked most of the Egyptian god stand users than I did with the 14 tarot card stand users.
Well, the thing is with the Egyptian god and tarot cards, the one of the reasons why they have to be like stronger than the previous enemies, because it's heading towards a climax of the grand finale. So looking at it from like a writer's perspective, you have to make the finale grand, make every enemy like worthwhile. But however, there were still some villains in there that weren't exactly top tier material. Actually, here's what we should do. We should talk about specifically each Egyptian god user.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
and then from
Yeah,
there
sure.
we'll see where this goes. But the first one on the list will be Endul.
Endel, for me, I think he left a pretty good impression. He was one of the more loyal minions out of Dio's group. I mean, he was willing to kill himself not to give out any info to betray
He
Dio.
wants to be Dio's #1 fanboy. He's competing with Vanilla.
Yeah, and he came off as a threat. I remembered. I mean, it's a water stand.
Oh, but this is gonna lead to like some complaints right here, because when we're first introduced to Endo, we first see his stand in effect, leading to like a Jojo CSI where they're trying to figure out like, hey, this guy drowned in the desert. Like, how? Where's the water come from? It just makes me wonder what Araki is thinking. Like, certainly the water in the desert makes a more mysterious atmosphere and kind of suspenseful, but at the same time, I can't help but think like, why did you send a water-based stand user in the desert when just a few hours ago, or maybe even minutes ago, you had a water-based stand user fight them under the sea, you know, with High Priestess. So I'm just thinking, why didn't you couldn't you have sent him? I know he's blind, but still, like, his stand's not gonna be that helpful in the Deccan desert.
Well, maybe he can't hear or detect the movements of others if they're in the
I don't
water.
know, maybe you could use like a sonar shit.
Oh no.
But, but the point is, Endo as a character, however, he's definitely in a more he follows the roots of like what part 1 and part 2 were all about, the whole like masculine ideology of being a warrior. Like you know how Wham was with his pride and everything, and Endo like certainly had that, despite his disability of not being able to see. It also introduced how he viewed Dio, and this is actually the first time we actually do see a character behave this way, where he described Dio as like this savior of evils and like this sort of like godly figure that is like destined to rule mankind, that sort of stuff, and how he's ended up being like basically got seduced by his words of power and well, Dio mentions it later on, the whole like peace of mind thing that actually kind of relates to a part 4 villain also. But yeah, the point is that Endo was like a very good introduction for the second half of the story.
Yeah, not only that, but he managed to like take down 2 of the Stardust Crusaders.
Well, that is true. I mean, I'm still a bit of annoyed how he knocked out Kakyoin like so quickly, and then he just like Kakyoin is just basically absent for most of the arc.
Yeah, I hated that. I was actually hoping that in this season everyone would stick together, but no, that wasn't the case.
No, I think we could jump on to the next. Well, actually, no. Before we jump to the next one, we gotta talk about his death scene.
Oh yes.
Of course, he went the Japanese way of kamikaze.
Oh yeah, kill himself with his own stand. Actually, he's the first person to do that.
That's what I meant. That it really went back to the whole warrior form of conflict. That's really absent in all of part 3 and subsequent JoJo parts. Well, yeah, mostly in 3 and 4. That's where all that shit is absent.
In fact, I think with Endo, I think this was the first time Jotaro came to respect one of Dio's minions, at least the closest thing we've got. Because, you know, in the manga and, of course, in the anime, he buries Endo. He even, like, uses a cane like a marker of his grave, which is actually kind of, like, a respectful thing to do. But I heard that in the OVAs, they do a better job portraying that.
Yeah, they do, because, well, for starters, the scenery has changed a little bit. It's still in the desert, but where Endo was buried is next to an obelisk, so both the cane and the obelisk make like a more grander gravestone. That and Jotaro actually gives like a little speech saying that perhaps if we met you before, that we could have been fighting on the same side, you know, kind of romanticize the death a bit more.
A man with such pride. If only we could have met you earlier, before you were introduced to Dio. Maybe we could have been fighting for the same side. Never know. Rest in peace by your cane and duel.
But it also like opened levels of Jotaro's personality, because we could talk about this a little later, but I'll just give a little tease for right now. Is that I know for sure a lot of people don't like Jotaro as much, or at least not as much as Polnareff or Joseph, or maybe even with Jonathan either. But the thing is, I don't know whether whether Araki realized it himself, or maybe the fans did it themselves. I'm not sure, that Jotaro was not really following the footsteps of Jonathan or Joseph when it came to that respectable form of conduct against like their adversaries, like with Jonathan with Ford and Joseph with Wham, and even with AC/DC at one point. When Jotaro, like all of his villains, all the enemies that he fought were basically just they were just like thugs. It's very reminiscent of Fist of the North Star, where Kensho just beat up like one random thug, you know, no respect for them, sort of like a Jaggy Amoeba thing, where, you know, just beat the shit out of them and then, you know, you're dead. In Jotaro's case, he never killed the character, but at the same time, he never really thought of them of any more than just an adversary.
Really? Because I'm pretty sure he did kill fake Captain Tennille.
Well, did he? Well, yeah, I guess he did, because the whole retire thing didn't pop in until like later on. So
I think it like showed up. I think, if I recall, I think it was during the Anubis fight. This when the whole retired thing
I
came
guess.
up.
Well, the point is that I'm trying to say that Jotaro's writing as a main character got really suffered in part 3, and I noticed that both the OVA and even the new anime tried to give him like extra lines of dialogue, or just a little more of an on-screen presence, such as the whole phone call scene in the submarine with the High Priest. That is the anime's attempt to try to like widen
Make Jotaro's
to widen Jotaro's expression and his personality, rather than just keep things subtle or almost too stoic.
One thing's for sure, he actually smiles and talks more in the anime than he did in the manga.
On the manga, he's mostly just he's just very, very stoic, very Kenshiro-like. The other reason why that might be is because he was like also inspired by Clint Eastwood, so that's another reason for his badass attitude.
Yeah, I did hear about that. Why don't we talk about like the tone of the story? Because I think throughout the season, there have been a lot of episodes where it would usually go at this comedic tone, but then shift into this serious tone, or at times it would go like vice versa.
Yeah, that's again the problem that I have with Araki's like writing, especially in part 3, because literally almost every fight would just flip flop between these fights are serious, but next week we're gonna have like a very comedic fight, and the next one's gonna be serious again, and then because immediately after the end though we have Oingo and Boingo.
Oh yeah.
As funny as the episode is, it's one of those stories I'm thinking like we didn't even really need it in the long run, but
it kind of felt like filler.
Yeah,
right?
that's the thing, because the reason why it kind of diminishes a bit, because when they're first introduced, once again, it starts off that they're very intimidating, very deadly, and very frightening with the whole like Toth being able to see the future, and the way how the whole scene played up with the bus crash. It just kind of raised people's expectations to see something out of them, but then what you get is a complete 180 or a 360, I should say, because it just became this comedic gag episode. It's kind of hilarious in a way, because it's basically these two thugs trying to kill like this group, but they're just failing at it in the most ridiculous ways. It's to the point where you would never expect an orange will be the cause of their defeats.
What I really found hilarious about that episode, though, was seeing what was it? I think it was Oingo, the Kunum stand user.
Yeah, I assume so. Do you mean the whole Jotaro like disguise?
Yeah, because it's like he's making all these facial expressions that you'd least expect Jotaro to make, which makes the episode hilarious.
I admit that I was looking forward to the expressions more than anything. That and the whole the oversized cap. And all of his excuses he would say, like, oh, they're the cleaners. Thinking that, like, oh, Jotaro, what happened to your clothes? And then everything, you need to take a shave, Jotaro? Then fuck it. Is it just like one thing after another? Then the whole Polnareff Joseph Joestar comedic duo that only happened once in the entire series.
Honestly, I really wanted to see like more of those two together, just for more comedy.
It'd
but
be too crazy.
I guess this is probably like the only time we're ever gonna get
Yeah,
that.
because
Yeah.
no, we had this conversation before, but I'll just mention it for like the viewers right now. Well, everyone knows what the problem with Joseph Joestar is in part 3 from how he was in part 2. But the thing is, Polnareff was basically a substitute for Joseph Joestar, because they're pretty much the same character. And I think that scene proved it the most, because Polnareff, he's never teamed up with Joseph by himself in terms of battle. He's teamed up with Jotaro, he's teamed up with Iggy, he's teamed up with Kakyoin, he's teamed up with Abdul, but never with Joseph.
Except with Oingo and Boingo, but that wasn't technically a
Yeah,
fight.
but you saw, it was a one-sided fight. Let's just leave it at that.
Oh yeah. But yeah, I get that, because like I wonder like why they never teamed up together, but I guess because, as you said before, Polnareff is supposed to replace Joseph, and of course we have the actual Joseph. It would probably bring in like way too much comedy.
I'm not sure if Araki was aware of it of himself, or like if it was in the back of his head or something, but I think he was just trying to avoid them being together because their characters would be too damn similar. I think that was the whole reason why they weren't on screen together that much. Because one of the scenes that I could think of that added to the humor of the series is when Polnareff licked the toilet bowl and then Joseph purposely teasing him about it. So I think that's the thing. Like, no matter what, those two are just gonna play off each other in that form.
Yeah. Although what I really didn't appreciate is the fact that they made Polnareff and Joseph complete idiots. I mean, you can clearly tell that is not Jotaro. And Joseph is his like freaking grandfather, so like, I mean, seriously, you can't tell the difference?
It's a thing, Joseph is the master of deception. Like, he got deceived bad.
Which is funny because even he didn't notice the whole mirror trick during the Sun episode.
They say that the mind is the first thing to go with age, but I don't know. I guess it's true for Joseph. I think that's enough with Oingo and Boingo, and now to the I think Anubis is next.
Oh yes, Anubis. Actually, Anubis became like one of my favorite Egyptian god stands.
Anubis is a
Because, like,
is a stand that I kind of wanted to see more of because, with all honesty, I feel like the way Anubis operates, that should have been something for like a main villain stand.
Oh yeah, I mean a sword stand that has the ability to possess you, and the possessed sword master can just cut through practically anything and phase through objects. It's a pretty tough
Oh yeah,
stand.
well, what makes it even more hacks is the fact that he could use another person's stand.
Oh yeah.
That was what makes it more deadly than anything. Basically, he just keeps getting power-ups in the middle of a battle.
He keeps getting like stronger and stronger within time, and able to like memorize his opponent's movements and abilities.
Yeah, but although the strange thing is that, okay, you know how Endor was supposed to be the god of earth with his stand Geb, yet he uses water. Again, Anubis, god of the dead, is like, he has nothing to do with the sword. And then the whole sword thing is just like more of a Japanese myth than anything. The cursed sword idea, such as like with, fuck, what was the name of that fucking sword? It was the... What's Kotetsu the name of that sword? I don't know. I know there's like several legends of these haunted and cursed swords in Japan where they say that they cannot be sheathed until they draw blood or the user just goes mad with rage and fury. It just seems odd that he combined a Japanese concept with Egyptian mythology, and I'm thinking like, I don't think those two go together, man. But
I'm not sure either, because I just assumed that Araki called him Anubis because the stand looked like Anubis. Oh, and by the way, the whole cursor thing is called a Muramasa.
There we go. That's what I was looking for. Yeah, the Muramasa blades. Well, the reason I say that is I'm wondering, are you doing this intentionally, or you just don't care that the mythologies don't mix? Because in Saint Seiya, something similar happened. They go to Hades. You know, the whole thing about Saint Seiya, it's Greek mythology. When they go to the underworld, they come across Cerberus, but where they find Cerberus is in a place that you would not expect it to be.
Where?
They found Cerberus next to a pyramid. And I'm thinking, and there's also like this, yeah, no, there was just like this pharaoh also down there saying that we're supposed to like enslave the dead or something. I don't remember all the details, so it's been a while, but yeah, that's one example. I'm kind of wondering, so you did know that's not exactly Greek, or you thought it was cool to put them together? I'm just wondering what the authors are thinking when it comes to those decisions. Like, is it just like intentionally or unintentionally you didn't know that they don't, or whatever.
Getting into Jojo, I'm like feeling that Araki doesn't really like think things through sometimes.
No,
I mean, the story is not like one of its strongest points in Stardust Crusaders, I will say that.
No, because he said it himself. That was basically well, he described it as a board game, but everyone else could also describe it as an RPG. Then again, that's the shonen way. Like, it's always been that way, where you basically fight one enemy after another. I guess the problem is that it just looks a bit more obvious. The fact that, you know, enemies they come non-stop. It's just one literally right after the other. Yeah,
that's the thing with Stardust Crusaders, is that sometimes you don't usually get an episode where they actually take a break. I mean, every episode is like a fight. They have to take on a stand user. Oh, I guess Boingo episode was an exception because they're not technically fighting. So I kind of wish that we had like more moments of just the characters taking a break and bonding. But I know that it's a race against time because they have like 50 days.
That's kind of the difference why Part 4 succeeds more in its character writing. Because of its slower pace, it allows more room for characters to interact with each other. Anubis is definitely one of the more opposing enemies of the series. Just that even the way he gets defeated, though, it just goes back to that
comedic tone.
Because it was just such a humiliating defeat. It was bad enough that he missed like where the sword landed, but he landed in a fucking cow. Then even afterwards, just drowns to his own demise.
No, it's not just a cow; it's a cow's butt.
Yeah, like a cow's butt. Actually, you remind me of something. You know what Pornref should have said? Like, where he saw the cow go crazy? Either him or Jotaro should have said it. Hey, look, that cow is going crazy.
Oh my god. No.
Cow.
No. It's so lame. But yeah, Anubis' defeat, not only was it humiliating for him, and all of a sudden, like, his character turned into, like, a complete 180. I mean, he came off as this, like, menacing stand, and all of a sudden, he was just becoming, like, so wimpy. I mean, you even hear him crying. It was funny and kind of sad at the same time.
Well, it is, because, like, Anubis already has the reputation of being the god of death, even though he wasn't exactly being a god of death. Again, like many other villains in the series, he starts off like very mysterious, like he appears out of nowhere actually, and then it just brings up like this whole deadly tone where how he's possessing this one guy, and then all the people around him are just dying by the blade, and then even more so when random flies would just be dying next to when they touch the sheath as well. And then, you know, after all the little fights, he shows up, nearly able to kill both Jotaro and Ponorin, and he was possibly the closest to kill Jotaro more than anybody, with honesty. By the end of it all, he just starts. Oh boy. It just becomes embarrassing, really.
Because freaking Iggy comes in and just trips the kid.
And then that will lead to our next comedic adventure, which is
Wait, before we get to that though, Anubis is actually the very first stand that was introduced that is just a wild stand. It has no stand user of its own.
You know, I can't help but well, there's a lot of similarities with this, but when you say wild stand, I can't help but think of a wild stand has appeared.
Pokemon.
Yes. I mean, seriously, like just.
Yeah, but I mean, like, it really surprised me that there was a stand userless stand.
Well, you actually see a little more of those wild stands in other subsequent parts of JoJo. There's one in part 4 called Cheap Trick, which is like one of the most trollish stands ever. One of the most like strangest and creepy. Yeah, I'm not gonna say too much, but let's just say that it actually led to one of my favorite jokes in all of part 4, where they mentioned like a little Golgo 13 joke with it.
Does part 4 actually explain more about why there are stands that exist without a stand user? Because it didn't really explain in the episode why Anubis existed all by himself.
Well, it's how can I put this? There has been some cases where Araki logic goes out the window, but in some parts, like especially in 4 and 5, well, actually no, recently in 6 too, there are moments where the stand user will die, and yet the stand is still active. Usually whenever that shit happens, they tend to be like some of the most broken stands ever. In part 5, there's one called Notorious B.I.G. It's similar to Yellow Temperance, where that is basically just a blob that it could just suck.
Oh god, seriously?
Yeah, it could suck up like a lot of stuff. And then in part 6, it's actually just one stand user, can't remember his name, but his stand's ability was called Limp Bizkit, and basically it's a zombie stand. The actual user actually dies, and he wasn't aware of him that he passed away, and essentially he just became a zombie, and then his stand ability would actually bring corpses to life. So, you know, going back to the roots of Phantom Blood, I guess. Yeah, but anyways, I think we should move to like Mario.
Yeah, Bastet or Bast.
Yeah, I've been seeing translations go from Bastis to Bast, or to Bast Maria, but the point is that she's still called Maria, so we'll just stick with that.
Okay.
Yeah, but
yeah, this one, well, I was actually grateful that we got another Joseph fight and another female stand user, and actually the sad thing is, out of all the female stand users, she's probably like the one that I thought was better.
She had the most style.
Yeah, and that's saying much considering like what female stand users that we had before. I mean, like with Nena, Enya, what was her name? Midler.
Yeah, that's all the women like stand users in part 3. Yeah, out of all of them, like yeah, I'm gonna sound like a broken record here. When Maria's first introduced, again, very mysterious, very like alluring, at the same time like has like this somewhat posh, but kind of like she had like this attitude where she seemed like she was ahead of the curve, or like she knew what was exactly what's gonna happen, like as if she foreseen every action her opponent was going to take. Basically like a for sure win for her. But once things starts changing, she starts doing like these faces, these like really
yeah, she kept losing her cool every time like things don't go her way. Shit eating bitches.
I don't know, because she came off as like very seductive and the whole like just stylish more than anything, and then I don't know what's with all these characters. They just do like a 180 personality change. I don't know, but then again, the main center of attention here is Joseph.
Yay, Joseph! I'm just actually glad that we got another fight that involves with him, but you know, with him being involved, that leaves a lot more. Oh my god!
Oh my god! Oh my god! Oh my god!
It also brought forward like one of the most infamous suspect scenes of all of JoJo history.
Oh god!
Kind of think of it like both Abdul and Joseph needed to do some bonding anyway. I mean, it annoys me like how Joseph says Abdul like he's my friend that I met in Egypt, and I'm thinking like, so are you guys close or not? Like, is he like now no replacement for Caesar, Joseph? Like he's not Caesar level? Is Abdul not Caesar level for you?
No, one can replace Caesar.
Well, it's evident. I mean, like, Abdul's spending more time with Polnareff more than anybody. For whatever reason, that episode is known for two very raunchy things in JoJo. One is the whole, like, how can I put this? Well, I'll just call it the infamous blowjob pose. That and the well, that's basically what the joke was. Everybody knew it. That and the whole like doggy style position. Like, Joseph just showing it, saying like, I'm the foxy grandpa here. Like,
What's even worse is that all those kids are like watching them do this, and they're gonna think that it's some sort of weird dance.
The other thing I was gonna mention was like the I guess I'll just call this the Maria's breast implant scene.
Oh
yeah, that was just that thing that
weird.
just popped out of nowhere, and everyone was just like wondering what the hell was this.
Yeah, like look at the size of her top. I mean, like how many pockets would she have in that so that all those nuts and bolts will be inside her shirt? Like what the hell?
Like I don't have breasts, but I'm pretty sure that would be a very uncomfortable thing to carry all the time.
It definitely should be. Yeah, this fight actually was another one of the comedy-filled fights. Especially, I'd say in like the first part. Of course, Joseph like trying to endure his day when he was magnetized, which honestly really stupid. I mean, like it's an electric outlet on a rock, and he thinks, oh, I should probably touch it.
Well, like, here's the thing: like you wouldn't touch an outlet in the first place. You should know better. You should know better than to just touch it. But yeah, then like even beforehand, there was the whole like holy shit, literally holy shit. I just got decayed and the whole toilet thing. He even commented that I'm saying like I'm not Polnareff. Like this is like his shtick. Yeah, actually Apple too. Like they were breaking the fourth wall again.
Yeah, throughout the series and the season, it's now become a thing that Polnareff would keep getting attacked whenever he's in the bathroom, which actually happens again in like the next part. But we'll get to that later. But there's actually a lot more scenes. I mean, remember the infamous escalator scene?
The escalator. A man's got a job to do. He's got to make sure the escalator works properly.
I just love how he like plays it off like that.
Sign here, please.
Well, I will say this: it was cool seeing like Joseph and Abdul like together as a team. I was actually expecting to see more of that, but yeah, that didn't really happen in the season.
Well, to be honest, when they fought her, I think she probably should have died. To me, I felt like Joseph. Like I know she was trying to kill you and all, but I just think you went a little too far. Like she brought it upon herself, but damn, dude, you smashed her. Like.
I know, but like earlier it felt like they were holding back. But yeah, that was brutal, I will admit.
Actually, I think that's the first Joseph actually fought a woman.
Really?
Well, unless you count Lisa, but he never really did anything to her.
Yeah, that was true. Actually, the sad thing is, Mariah actually had the hots for Joseph. And so did that old lady.
Foxy grandpa. Everyone wants the Joestar D. But then we go to one of the more disturbing villains of part 3 being Alessi and his stand, Sethan.